Hey, welcome back. Steve here. And today I'm sharing with you my appearance on the Better Learning podcast with Kevin Stoller from K12. We talked about my favorite school-related movie, and I chose Teachers from 1984. I love this movie. And if you've never seen it before, my hero is Mr. Gower. Yeah, just wait till you see it. We talk about what's realistic, what's ridiculous, who's a hero, who's a class clown, so much more. And we get into if they redid it today, who would play the characters today? Yeah. Oh man, this was a lot of fun. This was awesome. Thanks for checking it out. Enjoy the show.
It's another episode of the Better Learning Podcast. We've been changing our format and we've been doing these movie-themed ones for really the last 3-4 months, and they've been so much fun. And we're reconnected here with Stephen Miletto. Stephen, how's it going?
Oh, it's going awesome. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, it's been a few years since we had you on the show, and I definitely want to hear all the things that you have going. But we're going to work it into this conversation because you picked the movie Teachers from 1984. So tell me why this movie?
Well, in 1984, I was in my undergraduate program, and the movie came out right at a good time. I mean, I already had my thoughts about what I wanted to be as a teacher, and this kind of just drove it home. I love this movie.
Yeah. So this was the first time I had seen this movie. I didn't know it existed, but after watching it, and there's so much in here. I mean, there is so much that's even relevant, like literally to today with school. So I was so glad that we watched it. And then there were all these like cool, like personal things. Like I'll just start out. I didn't realize it was filmed in a Columbus high school, where I lived for a long time. And
That's awesome.
yeah, and it was the site where they actually closed up that high school and they built it's called COSI. It's the science museum, like right in kind of downtown area. So it was like prime location. It was cool to like be like, oh, I know exactly where that was filmed.
Yeah, it is awesome. That's when this came out, I was, like I said, I was in undergraduate school, but the other thing that was going on is that it's like I saw it at the theater. Right? So it's like and I saw it multiple times. I drug other people with me. I've turned into others and stuff like this. I said, "You're coming with me. Let's go."
So setting the scene, I mean, it's meant to be like kind of the way I took it is meant to be like this is like an average day of school or average week. Like this is what school is like, from the teachers and like teacher's perspective, and even like getting some of the administrators' perspective on there. And I mean, it definitely paints school as like chaos, like
Sure does.
a lot going on and a lot of things to deal with. And if I was just going to give a big recap, it hits everything from like all the things that are terrible about the profession, with also hitting in some of like the high points of like when you actually reach a student, of how impactful that is. But I would say overall, it does not paint teachers off as a good profession that people really would want to go into. So as an undergrad, like you saw that and you're thinking, yep, that's what I want to do.
Exactly. It was like it's like that didn't scare me away. It's like, yes, yeah. We've heard stories like this, and it like you said, it's everything's going on. If nothing else, they've decided that everything under the sun has to be addressed in a short period of time of this movie, and so it's one of those things that did not chase me away, especially because I identified with a couple of the characters in there, especially one in particular. And I was like, that's what I want to be right there.
All right, who was it? Who was
Herbert Gower? He's the substitute teacher who is not really the substitute teacher.
That was awesome. I have a lot of notes about that basically. Yeah, he just shows up.
Just shows up. He shows up and he's there, and he's, because he picked up the phone in the guy's apartment and said he was on his way. And I think that's, that right there with that, it's like, Okay, boy, that's a good system they have that anybody can come into the school and get the paper to lead them to where they need to go to the classroom. I like that. That's
Yeah, yep, yeah. No background checks. You just get in there, you ask someone, "Where's this room?" Now you're the
yes.
teacher.
They tell them where to go. It's good. All right, thank you. But he was the character that when I become a teacher. I mean, it's like my focus was to try and figure out how to make. I was becoming a history teacher, and I wanted to make history fun and understandable and something that they didn't fear or didn't say things like this. Do we have to know this for the test? You know?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. So when we get to the award categories, he shows up as one of my finalists
Ah,
and
awesome.
one of the awards. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I thought for sure you were going to talk about the Nick Nolte character,
What?
who was like kind of the central character of the teacher, the one who like is in there, like he's there because he or at least he started his career with the intentions of like I'm going to reach the kids that are really hard to reach, and that's where I get so much value out of being a teacher.
Yeah. Now if you look at my paper, you'll see that I have Alex Jarrell is his name. And the Nick Nolte character, and I have Herbert Gower as my two. Alex is an interesting character because
He is.
recovering from burnout, and and he's not happy. He's pretty much not happy that he's a teacher anymore. To the point that in the beginning of the movie, they show him hiding his Teacher of the Year award that he got at one point.
Yeah, yeah, and lying to the women saying he's a pilot because they know if he
Exactly.
says he's a teacher that's
Yeah, that's not
not
good.
as attractive.
It,
So yes. Yeah, there was a lot. I mean, if I kind of set up the movie, so 1984 movie, it's loaded cast. I mean, a really good cast. Yeah, I mean, if I just kind of run through all the people that are in there, you have Nick Nolte as Alex Jarrell, you have Jo Beth Williams, which I didn't know her as much, but she had a prominent role. Judd Hirsch, I feel like is like, yeah, like when you see him, you're like, oh, he's in like 100 different things that I've seen. And then you have Ralph Macchio, who is coming out with Karate Kid the same exact year. Like I think these both came out in the same year, so he's like having a breakout. And then you have like some of the ones that yeah, that Laura Dern, like before she, and you also had you have Morgan Freeman in there,
nice.
who really is just kind of a smaller part as like one of the attorneys before he really was breaking out into his bigger role. So yeah.
Awesome. It's a
Yeah.
it, and you have others. I mean, Richard Mulligan, who plays the substitute, he was a comedian. He was on a TV show called Soap, and he played this goofy part on that. And one of my all-time favorite movies that you can't find anywhere is called Scavenger Hunt, and he played a goofy character with another comedian named Scatman Crothers. I don't know if you Scatman
Oh
Crothers,
no.
voice of Hong Kong Fooey and a lot of other things, and he always played this kind of goofy sort of character, and some of it you see in that Herbert Gower
Yeah,
character.
because he plays like 10 different characters in the movie.
Yes, yes. And
The
but there,
other
go ahead.
the other one that surprised me was Crispin Glover, who plays Danny, who is kind of the friend of Ralph Macchio, who ends up getting shot, which I'm sure we'll talk a little more about that scene in there too. But I'm like, he looks so familiar. He looks so familiar. Do you remember? Do you know what else he was in?
I on purpose this time because I rewatched it a couple of different times. All right, getting ready for your talk, and I on purpose avoided it because I'm like, why why do I know who this character is, this actor? So tell me.
George McFly
That's what I thought.
in
That's
Back
what
to the Future.
yes.
Yes, and yeah, so it was like he looks familiar, but he's kind of different. Like, yeah, I couldn't quite place it until I'm like, oh, that is George McFly.
Awesome, isn't it?
Yeah,
Heavier, and so it's like there's certain mannerisms that he can't do away with because you remember you think of him in that malt shop in the
that's
movie when he's
right.
dealing with Biff, and
Yep, yep. Yeah, I mean, I can go through some notes, and if you want to add any things, but I just thought like, yeah, I mean, it was a great intro. Like even just at the beginning of the movie was a great intro. There's the teacher song. I mean, it just sets it up. Yeah, Alex Jarrell overslept and has a girl over, and the secretary at the school is calling saying, "Are you going to show up today?" And it also sets up like everything in the school, like all the chaos in that first scene where they're walking into the school.
It sure does, doesn't it? It's like, and by the way, this 38 special, awesome. And that song, Teacher, Teacher, that's just I bought the album. I have it at home. It was part of my collection those days. I went out and bought the album. I'm like, I gotta have this album. And now I've got it on a CD and all that stuff too. And it's but the song just really fits because it in there it talks about can you teach me what I need to know, or is it just all a lie? Something like that. And that pretty much sets up the movie too, because there's a lot of stuff going to happen in that time frame in which we're visiting the teachers at JFK.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe I'll wait until some of the stereotypes, but you hit a lot of them. Maybe even more just the stereotypes focused on like the types of teachers in this movie versus in other movies you get more of the stereotypes of the types of kids.
What I was going to say was that one of the things I do now in the role that I'm in is I teach a class to people who want to be substitute teachers, and I've also used this when I've taught some help sessions in classroom management. And there's a character in there that I use, and we'll get to him, I guess. But the point is that what's interesting is that this might have been 1984, and it's Hollywood telling us about classrooms, but there's some stuff that it's still happening today that you got to
Still
deal with in
happening.
the dress. So
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is amazing to think this was, what, over 40 years ago. And a lot of those stereotypes, whether they are still happening or not, there's still a lot of the same perceptions that are out there in school. And, like I think to me, the overriding one was the school and the district take priority over the kids.
yes,
Like that was the overriding theme of from the administration level. It's not about the kids, it's about teaching, it's about protecting the teachers and the system over the idea of how do we actually make an impact on these kids.
yeah, they pretty much make that clear because of course, it's going to come around full circle so that at the end they can make the point that it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that way. But I mean, they hit it from so many different angles from, like the union representation, from the lawsuit that's coming of like, yeah, when you go through your deposition, are you going to hold like, the line on the side of the district? Yeah, I mean, it permeates like all the way through this entire movie is just this central theme of like, are you going to protect the school or not?
It's so in your face with that because there's so much that happens in this movie just straight from the beginning. And then on top of that, you find out that a former student is the lawyer representing the former student who can't read or write. And she's thinking that it's all about making schools better places. And she's going to learn a hard lesson.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. You all right if we go into some of the award categories here?
Please, let's do
All
it.
right, cool. All right. So first one, the John Keating Award. So the whole idea taken from Dead Poet Society of Robin Williams' character. Who is the teacher or the mentor? Who is that main one that you say like, wow, that was the best teacher or mentor that they can do? And obviously this is a whole school of teachers. There's a lot of them to pick from here. I had a few. I'd love to hear your thoughts of like who were the best teachers.
So I have a tie, and I definitely don't think though that it's the teacher who brought the gun to school in her briefcase. So, you with that being said, my tie goes to Alex Jarrell, the Nick Nolte character, because he makes the shift from being burned out, embarrassed by being a teacher. He's a teacher that all the kids talk about from the past. How much they learn from him, stuff like this, and he has this impact where he talks with the kids. He knows who they are, and they know that he knows who they are, and he has this sense of reality with them, and he's the one who's going to make a difference in their lives. And then you have Herbert Gower, who ignoring the storyline with the whole idea that he's actually supposed to, he's a ward in some sort of hospital. And
Exactly. He's like an outpatient mental
yes.
from a mental hospital, but
Uh, but with that being said, when he steps into the classroom, one of the first things he does is first he's looking at the kids and they're looking at him and they're like, when kid says, "Aren't you going to teach us?" It's like, "Oh, yes." And he looks at the book. He says, "Where did you leave off?" And the one kid says, "Pickett's charge." And he's like, "Oh, yes." And he looks at it, flips to the book, and he walks over to the window, opens the window, and throws the book out the window. And the kids all go, "Yeah!"
yes.
And boom, right there. That's something that is part of inspiring
Yeah,
direction to me.
I know. I had him in there too, and it's hard to even really compare anyone because there are moments where Alex Durrell it was like, wow, he was a really good teacher, but there were so many moments where you're like, he is a horrible teacher.
Yes, exactly. He's got
That
this
like
whole
maybe at the end he kind of redeems himself, but there were so many moments where you're like, oh, like he like how could they even let him in a school?
right. Well, like one of the things that he does is I think that's where, when we look at things that we're dealing with today, where the idea of burnout and stuff like this, he refines that spark again as he's helping deal with some of the kid issues that happen in the movie and some of the adult issues. And it's cool. And he speaks up for Mr. Rosenberg, who's the math teacher, who they want him to resign. And you suddenly see the spark comes back and he gets to say this great thing that we'll talk about later at the end of the movie. But yeah, that's where he's not too inspiring from the beginning, but there are things that you realize that the kids know him, they talk about him, they want him to be their teacher. He's seen by the others. There's a respect by the other teachers in the school about, why do the kids like him so much and stuff like this, I think. And then you got Mr. Gower over there who's
Right. I,
bringing out the costumes and having fun. So
I think Mr. Gower has to win this, but I think like the writers of this movie, like it's like you knew they did it this way. Like we're gonna make the best teacher somebody from a mental institution.
yes,
Like that was like part of the whether you call it a satire or like kind of the approach of this movie was to show like the absurdity that can go on in schools. And yeah, but I think he's actually I think he was the one that reached the students and made like made learning real for them.
very much so. He made it real. He used the costumes. He didn't allow them. He became the characters, and
Yeah.
which they show with Lincoln, where even though they're laughing at him, he's not laughing, and he goes out there and reads the get
Yeah,
dressed. You know,
exactly.
that has to be part of
Yeah.
the message, which is you have to be nuts to be
Uh,
successful teacher.
right, exactly. And then I could almost make a case a little bit that some of the students actually become some of the best teachers and the ones
You
there like yeah, even though like Eddie, who was Ralph Macchio's like cat, was probably the most one of the troubled ones in there, he like other students were looking to him to be a leader and they were learning from him. Yeah, and like when they had problems, they would go to him to help solve that.
kind of he has that mystique about him because he's able to do things that others wouldn't think about doing, and they respect him, and then it causes a division between him and his best friend Danny.
Yeah, but when we really look at like the best type of learning, like that was probably the best example in the movie of instead of saying like, "Hey, I need to do a report," or like I'm going to give you a test. They said, "Show me, like however you're going to do it, show me." And he goes and he takes pictures and puts together a slideshow, and
Love that.
yeah, and what a great
Overpriced.
yeah, what a great learning moment.
So much so, and
Yeah.
especially, and the kids got into it too. And when they're showing pictures that they all knew of the different characters that were the adults around the school, and then of course he ends it with a picture of Mr. Jarrell.
With the cigarette. Yeah.
Cigarettes.
Yeah. All right. So if we go on to the clicks, iconic stereotypes, like I said, they definitely hit this at the teacher level. So usually we're talking more of like, yeah, the different groups that the students get into, but I mean, I'll just kind of start out naming a few. I mean, you definitely had like the teacher that got stepped on, the math teacher,
Yes, Mr. Rosenberg.
Mr. Rosenberg. I mean, he literally got like bit like
He's
just
bitten.
walked over. Literally, one of the kids like bit him.
Yes.
So he just got walked over. Then you had Ditto, who was the teacher who just towards the end of retirement had his worksheets and didn't want to interact with the student. Literally, just fell asleep and would just you'd go pick up your worksheet
You gotta
and
love
do
it because
that.
kids knew the routine. You walk in, sit down, you get up and go get your worksheet package.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And he got, and what was it? He had like 3 years in a row of like I can't remember, like something about like the most organized classroom or the most control. I can't remember what
I think
his
it was the
category.
paperwork that he completed his paperwork. Something like that. It's 3 years in a row. I get the, yeah, whatever it was. It's like 3 years, but it's something that I'm not so sure there'd be a lot of teachers proud of that.
What other stereotypes do you have?
One of the things that I love is so the school secretary, she's pretty much running everything. And she's taking care of business. And I think that's a good stereotype because a lot of times in schools, especially high schools, that's what and especially elementary schools. What am I saying? That person who's up front, they kind of run the roost. And she did just that from the very beginning of the show. And Mr. Jorel, we'd like to, are you going to be here today? It's Monday. I thought that was a cool click or
Yeah, for sure.
art there. You have the school psychologist, which is awesome. That it almost makes me wonder if 14-year-olds wrote part of the script.
It may have been. It may have been like, all right, we're
I'm pretty sure that's how we thought of, the psychologists is that they lose their minds. And I think another part of it, when you talk about that, there's police officers.
hmm
And there's a clique within the police officers is the ones who they're not there for police business. There's one that's there for police business, and there's another one who's there for a presentation.
That's right.
That kid's bleeding. Oh, he is. Well, you do something about it. Oh, I'm here for a presentation or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
Not my business. I guess he's in that clique of that's none of my business. Even though, like,
Yeah. Yeah. How many did that with the kid? You're like, you do know somebody's bleeding here. Like a kid got stabbed and everyone just acknowledges that he got stabbed, but
yes.
nobody does anything.
Then you have
Um,
the smart administrator and the dumb administrator. You have the principal who is he knows nothing. He sees nothing. I really don't know anything. That's and then you have the other one who's kind of running the ship for him, which is the Judd Hirsch character,
yeah,
Mr.
I thought there was definitely that stereotype. Like the assistant principal is actually the one that's doing all the work and yeah, has to deal with all the urgent problems.
Exactly. And I thought that was an interesting one there because with the administration, that's and there's more that falls into that type of clique too, because then they show that you have teachers versus administrators, and that's where the union falls in. When Mr. Rubel walks into the teachers' lounge and they all get quiet, the union rep stops ranting about 3 minutes or whatever it is he's ranting about, and they all kind of look at him.
Yeah. 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 And then you had the superintendent that came in that was really worried about, yeah, just more of like, how's this going to look to the community? We have a bond on like
Yes.
we need to make this problem go away because
She's very afraid of that. And you have any number of other types of representations here. So, like the PE teacher who's the male stud, we'll find out more about him later, but girls like him for some reason. And you just have any number of these types of stereotypes. The shop teacher, you don't see him much, the automotive guy, but he's all greasy and dirty, and they're all in there doing whatever they want with the cars. I thought that was
yeah.
interesting. So there was
Yeah.
something there point they wanted to make about because he was almost invisible with the kids pretty much controlling that class.
Yeah, yep, for sure. The other ones that I thought of in there too is it was really there wasn't a lot of parent perspective in this movie, but where it
Oh,
was was with Eddie's parents,
yes.
who parents were divorced. The mom comes in with a lawyer, and isn't so much worried about the education, but just more worried about like following the rules of like that he can't interact or that his dad can't pick him up. That was actually one of the one-liners that I put in there of like, um, Mr. Jarrell asks of like, don't you care about your son's education? And the response back from the mom, well, isn't that your job, Mr. Jarrell?
Yeah,
Of that,
it's a
yeah,
line right there. And I got to tell you, I'm in my 38th year, and even though they may not say it exactly like that, I've had something similar noted or commented or direct that direction.
Yeah. And then his dad comes in later and his like I don't know, maybe 30 seconds on screen, he hits his kid in there and yeah, gives a representation. Like, okay, like now you can see how what the kid is dealing with and why school isn't his top priority versus what he's got to deal with in his home life. So it yeah, there I'm trying to think, were there any other parents that were in this movie? I don't remember anything else.
No, I think that's it. You have reference to like Danny's parents, and you have maybe some references there once in a while, but not. Oh, you have reference to the. Oh my goodness, forgot her name. The who becomes an actress. This is
Oh,
her,
Laura Dern.
Laura Dern. Yeah, so you have
Yeah,
reference to her parents can't find out type thing.
right.
You have reference to parents, but you don't. They don't exist.
Yeah, yeah. So moving on, Class Clown is was there a character that stole the show? They may not have had a major role, but they get a lot of attention when they are on screen. Are
I
we going to come back to the same one here? I want to hear
Yeah,
what you
I am.
think.
I am. I've got two that were major character. Well, one's not so major, but they show him enough times to give you a break from intensity of other stuff. And so one of my class clowns is Herbert Gower, the substitute
Yeah.
teacher, because he's every time you turn around. I mean, one time he's Ben Franklin walking through the stairwell with his kite that flies by itself, and another time he's George Washington, and he's got any number of characters, and he's constantly in these costumes and such, and he's there doing his thing, and the kids are loving it, and he's asking them questions, and they're responding, and they're
Yeah.
what river is this? Yeah, and he's definitely one of my class clowns because he lightens up the moment because there's some intense stuff that happens in the movie, and but at the same time he's the one that the kids are loving the teaching that's going on and so forth, and that character just fits for me in that category. And then my other one is Eddie Palicki, Karate Kid here. One of the things is from the slideshow to stealing cars to he has a set of keys that
I know. And he
anything.
knew exactly which key would start that
Exactly,
car.
exactly. And he knows how to make the fire alarms work. So
Yeah.
it's like he has everything. That's why they go to him. He has that panache, that
Yeah.
whatever it is
Yep.
to make things happen, and that's what gets him sideways with his friend Danny when Danny says to him, "Well, it's okay for the great Eddie to do whatever, but Danny can't take his own car. This is my car. I'm keeping it because he steals a car." And to me, Eddie and Herbert Gower are the two.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I feel like Herbert Gower definitely like had more of the comic relief, but I do feel like Ralph Macchio, like you could tell he was like the breakout actor at the time. Like
Yeah.
he definitely like stood out. Yeah, to your point, like he had a decently large role, but it felt like he was making the most of that time on screen. Yeah, there was one other thing that yeah, it may come to me later. So I'll keep moving on here on that one then. The next is like, is there like we call this the homecoming scene, but there's like an iconic classroom moment in here. Was there a scene that really had the most impact on there? I'll start it out. I feel like it's kind of the ending scene, like as weird as it was with the lawyer taking with her just stripping all her clothes off, and it was a super weird scene, but it set it up for like the whole like moral of the story
Oh, yeah.
message. To
Yeah,
me, I
that
don't know. Did you have others that
I have some others, but I do have to comment about that because earlier in the movie, there's this whole comment made about would you walk naked down these hallways if it would, and I forget what the if it, but it's like if it would make your point or do whatever, and I would not walk, and they get in this conversation about walking naked down the hallway, and then she does it to try and get him to stop from leaving and quitting, and that's a pretty intense scene. Who in the modern day, a lot of problems
There's been
right
a lot
here.
of problems with that. What I thought actually was like the most odd part of that scene was so it's like they're kind of dating at the time. So it's Alex Drell and then this attorney who used to be his student. She strips naked in the hallway with a whole bunch of high school students, and he wraps her around in like a trench coat and then passes her off to Eddie. to
Yes.
say take care of her.
Take her out the back or something like that. And then he goes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, how odd is that? This is like the one, like the problem student that he's been dealing with. And now he's putting like,
But
like
that's,
he's trusting him to be the one that is going to protect his girlfriend who's naked in
yes,
the
and
sea of high schoolers.
it shows you the power structure, though. You have the
Yeah.
teacher who's kind of on the outs and who connects with kids, and and that kid respects him because he's on the outs, and he makes it happen. So yeah, I think that's it's funny in a kind of wow. Okay, yes. Take care of her, Eddie. I know you'll do it.
Have you ever wondered how a simple change in your classroom can revolutionize learning? At K12, we believe the physical space is key. When we partnered with Gary Community Schools in Indiana, something incredible happened. Their classrooms were outdated and uninspiring. Using our radically student-centered approach, we reimagined their spaces. The transformation was nothing short of amazing. Teachers saw immediate results, students came back from winter break excited, more engaged, collaboration increased, and overall performance improved. One student even shared, "We have new furniture, it's like Christmas all over again." On the first day back, local media came in to cover the story, capturing the joy and excitement of students discovering their new learning environments. See how we can transform your school today. Visit kay-twelve.com to learn more about our innovative approach. K-12, because every student deserves an inspiring place to learn. Visit kay-twelve.com today.
All right. So a one-liner. Was there a line that stood out as like the funniest one for you? I had a couple of them, but I don't.
Okay, so can I go back just a second?
Yeah,
Because
yeah. Let's
homecoming
hear it.
scene, because I wanted to make sure that I mentioned these two scenes because um, number one to me is that Mr. Gower throwing the book out the window.
Mm,
Because especially in those days and today, I mean, today it fits today also because there's this whole thing about how there's too much of top down control of what's going on in the classroom. And so that the idea that it's prescripted and that it's, you got to follow this pattern or whatever. And it was happening then too, but not to this extent, but to the point where throwing that book out the window is something that was more than, I mean, you kind of felt it, especially those who were becoming teachers, I think, or who were teachers in the time. I didn't have any teacher friends that I'm going, did you see that movie? Because the one who I did just kind of poo-pooed the movie. And then the other one was, and I got to talk about this one. So I'm going to clean it up a little bit. But one of my all-time favorite scenes in this movie is Alex Jarrell and Mr. Rubel, so Judd Hirsch and Nick Nolte, their characters have a few too many adult beverages, and they
yeah.
go to the apartment where Alex lives, and they're talking about different things. And so you have the teacher and the administrator, and it's interesting because when they get into this discussion, the assistant principal says, we do the best with what we got, and the Jarrell character says, yeah, what we got sucks. And there's more to that scene because they talk about what would happen if the kids weren't required to go to school, but we're not go there right now.
Yeah, yeah. But that was a really powerful scene early in the movie to show how they both like were kind of like what you would consider like good teachers, like really committed teachers earlier in their career, and how they both had made choices that took them down different paths. Like if they would look back at their, like, or if they would look forward as a younger teacher, they probably would be disgusted with themselves.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's why I think that scene, especially now where I am in my career, back then it was just the cool sort of
Yeah.
scene. Now it speaks even more to, everything from what, where, what happens to money, where it goes, what's made more important and such like that. And I just love the whole thing where he says, we do good with what we got. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it
Which
sucks.
sucks. That's a good one-liner.
Yes.
Two in there. All right.
Sorry,
Well,
I had to make sure
that will lead right into our one-liner. Is that yours? Do you have other one-liners that you wanted to
actually,
throw into this category?
I actually have a couple more.
What do you got?
Like, one of the things is when Eddie, and this is a serious part in the movie, when Jarrell has to go to the board has set up in the gym, and they've decided that because the court case has been settled, and so they decided that this is time to get rid of one of their problems, and one of their problems is Mr. Jarrell, and so he's not going to get a chance to give a deposition, and instead they're just going to have him sign his resignation and leave. And he figures out as they're talking to him and stuff like that, that scene is very poignant in what's getting ready to happen. And so he realizes that he's not on good any level ground here. He's in a very rough situation. So he says, you do whatever you want, and I'm out of here. And he leaves out of there, and he goes to the classroom. He starts packing stuff up, and Eddie comes in the classroom, and he says to him, so are you going to stay or are you going to go? And that, to me, that's a line that just hits home.
Yeah, and that line was like he was throwing it back at him because the teacher had asked him earlier, same thing of like, hey, he hadn't shown up. I have a really dumb one, but it stood out to me because I'm just in like dad joke mode right now, and it was one that I do all the time to my kids. But when they're repairing the radiator, he asks the girl to like, I don't remember, pick up a tool and then with your right hand, do that. And she takes her left hand and he's like, no, your other right hand. And I do that to my kids all the time on there. Nice. So I don't know if if it made its way into other movies or something, but that one, I did have like the parent one, not to go back to it, but isn't that your job, Mr. Jarrell, of, if you care about your son's education, that there were a lot of ones like that were like more serious, like pointed lines in the movie.
Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, it's that whole scene right there. This is not a romantic comedy movie, and making it school just seemed so rough. I think that is a very telling one in dealing with the what's more important theme that you've been talking about, which is the kids or something else. And in the case of those two parents, it wasn't their kid. Very telling. I also had when Alex Jarrell is talking to the superintendent on the front of the steps of the school at the end, it's all clicked in him because of what's going on. And he says to the superintendent, he says, they're not here for us. We're here for them. That's what it's about. Kids.
Yeah.
And that's a very cool line.
Yeah, that's really cool. And then there was actually another one too, like right in that where I can't remember exactly what it was like, are you crazy or something? And he's like, I can't even remember if he says no or yes, but it ends with like yes or no. I'm crazy. Like I'm a teacher. Like, like you almost have to be crazy to be a teacher.
Yes, and it's awesome because she says to him, "You're crazy. You know that?" And he says, I'm a teacher. Because right in there is where, right before all this happens, is where Mr. Rosenberg goes to him and says, Alex, you see this? They're making me quit. They're making me step down. He's like, nobody is. And he rips it up. And there's a whole bunch of neat stuff right in there.
All right. So I did have Mr. Rosenberg as a one-liner too. He would always say the please in front of his students. Like he kept repeating it. I could only imagine what the kids were saying about him.
That's the scene I use for the classroom manager.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Because he's doing stuff where he's talking over the kids. He's not getting them quiet. There's his procedure for starting class is walk in late, go to the door, start calling roll, and do the Mr. Rogers things. He takes off his jacket, hangs it up in the closet, and he's still calling roll. And one of my favorite things is that for the kids who today think that they set the standard for wearing holes in the jeans, there's the kid who's sitting in the front of the class who says, hey, don't wear those pants again. And he says, okay. And I like to use that part of the scene to say, do you think he's going to wear those pants again?
Yep. Yeah. Very effective.
I got real serious with mine here, I guess, because one of the ones was when Miss Hammond, who's the lawyer, she's talking with a law partner, and she says, settled, we're talking about the future. And the partner says, we're talking about reality. Mm-hmm. Basically dismisses her. And it's like, ooh, hey, yes, we're back to that whole thing that started at the beginning. This is not about the kids. This is about
Yeah.
else. And in the case, what Jarrell is telling her at one point is that it's about money, not about whether he can read or write.
Yeah. Yep. For sure.
Well,
Yeah.
I
Well,
have,
that's a perfect. Did you have another one?
yeah, I have one more. I got one
Yes. All
more
right. I love it.
here. So Alex Jarrell to Larry, who's the union rep, is 3 minutes all we got to fight for. When he confronts him about it, it's 3 minutes all we got to fight for, Larry. And it's like, yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing.
Yeah.
That was kind of the stick of that character, was to be constantly seen wanting
Yeah.
fighting for 3 minutes.
Oh man. Yeah.
Sorry,
Well, that's a good one of going into the realistic or ridiculous. There's a lot of this where it's got a mix of both of those
oh,
in
that it
there.
does. That it does. This
What
is where
yeah, what do you have in this category?
I was going to say, this is where reality is kind of, we got to get the storyline in. And so we're going to make it happen, even though if this happened, there's a lot of things that you're going to have to deal with as a result of this. And they don't deal with what you would, in reality, would probably be part of that. And one of them is the Jarrell taking the student to get an abortion. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's like, hmm, let's see. Even though the whole talking him into it and stuff like this is a neat scene, and he's trying to decide whether he should do this because it needs to be done, or not. And it's like, well, yeah, not a wise choice here. But it does. That one was way out there. I have to say and part of that is that there's a teacher who's getting multiple students pregnant. It's like,
Right.
somebody would be arrested. I mean, it's like,
Right, exactly. Yeah. Instead he's just sitting in the principal's office getting yelled at.
yeah, exactly. There's a locker search right now. Having been a president, having been a principal, an assistant principal at different times, and we've done locker searches and bring in the dogs and do different things. You don't have the kids right there at the lockers. All right, it's like, and they're all gathered around and they're hooting and hollering at things and stuff, and it's like it's a pep rally at the lockers with
Yeah.
the police searching. And I thought that was, and eventually that locker search is what leads to the shooting of the student who pulls his gun out to deal with his bully, the
Yeah.
bully he wants to deal with. And I have to, I have to, if you're okay with this, I have to move forward with my last couple. One, the
Yeah, let's hear it.
is extremely dumb. All right. He's just, or he's just good at acting that way. I don't know anything. I really don't, And I love it when the lawyer commends him. Very nice. Very nice. What? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And the ease at which Mr. Gower, which we already talked about, the ease at which Mr. Gower took the role of the substitute teacher is like, dude, man, this is like the opening to a Stephen King movie or something. I don't know. It just didn't go there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure. That one was probably the most ridiculous of that he would just become he would just walk into a random apartment while the guy's in the shower, answer a phone, and then go become the teacher. That was definitely ridiculous. The shooting scene, that was, I mean, yeah, your point of like, there's no way that would happen where they're searching while the kids are right there too, and how that happened with him getting shot. But I thought it was more ridiculous of just like how everyone just acted like that didn't happen.
Right.
Like, Eddie comes in later and he's like, "Yeah, your friend died. He's dead. Move on." Well, it's like that was the only thing that like even like acknowledged the fact that the kid just got shot in the hallway by a police officer.
My police officer. And then that was yeah, you're so right on the money, because that was like, nice. All right. So Danny's gone. We got one less student. So we're good. Yeah. It's like, yeah. But that was pretty powerful right there. I do have to say, one that I didn't write down, but now comes to mind a little bit more, is there's this whole thing about poor Mr. Rosenberg. They steal his car and they strip his car, and then they also stole a driver's ed car. And that's a rough place if you drove a car.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else in there? Should we move on?
I think we could move on, because there's
All
a
right.
lot of that. But I do have to say that something that was I can't ever see happening, but always wanted to see happen, was the scene with the school psychologist and Ditto at the beginning. You're always hogging the machine. It's always, today it's mine. And she squirts the ink. And of course, unless you ever had to deal with Ditto machine, because when I started teaching, it's everything's copiers. I mean, we had ditto machines and the purple stuff that everybody was like, "Wow, this smells good, man." But but at the same time, there were always those teachers who that was their thing, is that they're and they get to the coffee machines and stuff like this, and or they're always taking up the coffee room person who might be operating the machine. It's like you're always in the way, man. And so that was kind of an interesting scene, just because I'm sure there were a lot of teachers going, "Yeah, you tell him, man, tell him."
Yeah, for me, I'm like, it took me a second to, I'm like, what is he doing? Because I am definitely like, I'm like, oh, I know what those are, but I've never used one before.
Those things were awesome in different ways. One was it really was, you manually operated the thing. It's like turn that crank, put that paper in there. And then the other thing that was really cool was that the purple ink had a smell, had a neat odor,
Okay.
aroma, I should call it. And lots of the papers after you did that, they were a little damp for a while. And
So was it called a ditto machine, or like
yes,
what are they really like? Was there
duplicating machine or
a
something like that.
duplicate? Okay, all right.
But I mean, people referred to them if you wanted to get copies made, they were sitting there as a relic. And so you could use them as
Okay.
when I was a student teacher in this school. And so you could use them. And it was easier to get to the ditto machine than it was the
Okay.
copier. It's just funny because to go into more detail, at that school, they had a parent who volunteered type thing, didn't get paid, but came in on certain days of the week and would be behind the massive copier and would do. So if you did it the right way, you put in a piece of paper with the original, and this is how many copies I need, and this is what I'm asking for. And that person would come in on those days, and then they'd be done by the end of the day, and they'd be put in your mailbox type of thing. Well, for those teachers who were running late, who never took care of that, then there was a regular copier machine right in front of that, and you treat that as a line. Right? And then over in the corner was the ditto machine, and there wasn't a line there because, yeah. And so it's like, haha. So the really, really late teacher could go over there, or the student teacher who had to figure out other things. And it's like, well, I'll use that instead.
Yeah. Well, that's another great transition into the iPhone effect category of, if it was made today, what elements would be different? Like what are different technologies, social dynamics, things that could or could not happen if it was remade today.
Well, I have to start first with we just had the duplicating and the copier machines right there speaks a lot to
Yeah.
because today with copying stuff, it's so much faster and efficient, and it's like it's done,
Yeah, yeah, done. Or you're on your one-to-one Chromebook device, or like you just don't even do that anymore. Now it's
Exactly. You don't need it as much, and that's a big deal. I think one of the things is, so when Eddie makes that slideshow, he wouldn't have needed to abscond with a camera out of the storage room. He would have had a phone that he could have taken all the pictures he wanted. Could have actually even created a slideshow with music and all kinds of stuff right there in his phone,
yeah,
and then
and
broadcast it across the school on the
that's
TV.
right. That's right. Or it would have been all over TikTok. And
Yes, yeah, there you go. I have to say that just the lack of technology in the school, the type that, because you had the teacher with, if you look, there's a couple of teachers you see that have overheads. They have screens pulled down. You have movie projectors, that was just the reels. I love that. And today it's, you have the ability to go out to YouTube, or like you said, or wherever you're going to pull from that's going to help you with an interactive board and stuff like this. And it would change it in that you could create different scenarios. But I think if you still look at the movie, that the things that they make happen are things that you could just make happen, and they have the telephones, or something. But
yeah, yeah, for
um,
sure. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely stuff of like, there's no way any of that, like, yeah, if a kid is biting a teacher, one, every other kid probably has their phone out at
yes,
that point, or hopefully someone would call,
right.
or there'd be some technology on that. But I feel like kind of all those elements of it, you put a phone in there, and
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know, does a lawyer strip down naked in the middle of the hallway?
probably not. I know one of the things you made me think of is the differences in technology and stuff is that we have with the school. Oh my gosh, sorry, I should have said it right as I was starting to think of it. My brain saying a million miles a second, but you just have an assortment of things going on in the school that, for example, so the ease of which they stole the cars lots of schools today have cameras everywhere, and
Right.
they're going to go to the camera to see. Having been an administrator, go to the camera. Let's see what.
That's
Aha! There
right.
we go. And
Yeah. Who pulled the fire alarm? Yeah.
it's exactly going to be able to see that. And there's just stuff of a school where it's very anonymous and you're in and around different things, and as opposed to the schools where Big Brother is watching you. So
Yeah.
that's an
Yeah.
interesting aspect to it.
That going back, that was probably one of the more ridiculous things too, was him pulling the fire alarm of like how it was a fake fire alarm, but if
Yes,
he just
yes.
hit his elbow hard enough into this metal box that it would actually trigger the fire alarm to go off. Yeah,
That was impressive talent he had there.
that was impressive. Yeah. All right. So the substitute. If we were going to recast any of the main roles, would you put any different actors in any of those roles?
Now, I like these actors who are in these roles, but lots of people don't even know who they are, except for some of them who continue. I mean, Judge
Yeah.
Hirsch just recently passed away, and Jo Beth Williams she's still around, but she was in a lot of different very serious movies. Shortly after that, her career went big time. So I was thinking about if it was made today and we just took some modern actors. And so my main ones were this. I thought Alex Jarrell could be Chris Pratt. I thought Star-Lord would
Yes.
be great in that role.
Yes. And I I think of him as Andy in Parks and Rec.
Ah,
Which
there
is
you go.
like one
Yeah.
of the greatest characters of all time. So
Nice.
yes, totally agree. I think he could
Thanks.
absolutely play that role.
And so I thought to be like the anti-Alex, but friends until a point. So Mr. Rubel would be Chris Pine, Captain Kirk. All right. He's played a lot of different roles. He's Steve Trevor in the Wonder Woman movies, and then there's lots of other serious movies he's in. But my favorite role with him is Captain Kirk. But I could see him as Mr. Rubel, where they get into an argument, and he has to become the not so nice guy to the Chris Pratt Alex type character.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. This would be a really interesting remake to be done in current era.
I think so,
Um,
especially because
yeah.
there's some talent now. Once we get to the kid, I don't really know kid actors today. We're past the age when I was watching that stuff with my kids on Nickelodeon or something like this. But it's. But I was thinking that the principal, that we have a couple actors that are a little older now, like Eddie Murphy could be the principal, where he could not know anything, doesn't remember people's names or whatever the thing they're asking him. I also thought about. I'm drawing a blank right now, but there's a couple different people I think that are actors today that would have fun with that principal role, Mr. Horn.
Yeah.
Miss Hammond, I was going for like Amy Adams or Rachel McAdams. There's two actresses.
Yeah.
I thought the superintendent, Chris Rock, might make an interesting.
Oh, that'd be great.
Mr. Rosenberg, I thought Jack Black probably would be
Oh, yeah.
in the classroom with the hand biting and everything. I don't know. I just thought he would have interesting characterization there. And finally, my Mr. Gower, I was thinking Ryan Reynolds. I thought he might have fun with
I
that.
can see him doing that. I could also see like Will Ferrell
Oh,
doing
yeah.
that too, just playing some different characters and going
Yep.
all out. Yep.
I didn't do anybody for the kids because I didn't really know anybody, any of these characters that would be able to. Because I'm pretty sure those characters who played high school kids weren't even high school age. They're probably in their early 20s. But
Yeah, they were. I tracked down an interview with Ralph Macchio after, because I was trying to track down. I saw something saying that he hated this movie, so I was trying to figure out why. And I saw a short little interview, and he had mentioned that he had already graduated, so he was trying to refer back to when he was a student. But
That's
I would
funny.
think they were all past their high school years.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, I'm gonna wrap it up with the last one here. And where are they now? You're saying 40 years later. I mean, they're probably all retired, but where would they all be retired now if we were just going to look at a few of the main characters? Nick Nolte's character, what do you think he's doing?
Well, I thought that he married Miss Hammond and he became principal of JFK. And Miss Hammond is doing a podcast on legal issues and stuff like this, and focused on her podcast about what matters most in the world. And that was my thought right there. For those, Mr. Rubel, I decided that he retired and he goes on to drive for Uber. For those of you who remember, he also was on Taxi, right?
That's right. That's a perfect.
Um, for Eddie, I thought that he ends up running for mayor of his hometown and owns a school safety fire alarm company. And then Mr. Gower, I thought that he ends up off Broadway in a one-man show where it's called I'm a Teacher.
Those are amazing. Those are awesome. That's great. I don't have anything that's even close to compete with that. So let's go with all of those.
Okay.
Yeah, that is outstanding. I mean, as we wrap up, great movie. Glad you suggested this one. I can't believe I didn't know this existed before. But yeah, tell me what real world, what are you doing these days? Sounds like so you're working with substitute teachers?
Yes, it's part of what I do. I'm the executive director of what's called ERISA in the state of Georgia. There are 16 of us in the state, and like 48 of the states have something like us. What we are, RISA is a regional education service agency, and we basically do service and support for our member school systems. And we have, and so one of the things I do on top of that is I have a team that works with the school systems to address the needs that they have from math, ELA, social studies, just different sorts of literacy, different sorts of programs, stuff like this, helping the teachers do those things, classroom management. We also work with principals and assistant principals on different leadership trainings and so forth. And one of the things I do is I do a substitute training class, which I created this class around different things I learned along the way from the days when I was a substitute teacher all the way forward when I was a assistant principal and principal, helping teachers figure out how to do classroom management, how to work in the classroom as a substitute teacher, how to get out of the stuff they got themselves into, and stuff like that. And I'm also doing some classroom management as well as some instructional type training, like use of formative assessment and stuff like that to help the kids, help the teacher figure out whether the kids are getting it or not, that type of thing.
Very cool.
So
Yeah.
that's
I
what
mean, yeah. What's the current like situation where you're at? Are you seeing like current trends or certain issues that you're dealing with more now versus what you've had in the past?
Well, I think one of the things that's very prevalent in the last several years, especially moving forward after COVID, is the anxiety levels of kids and having to combat and deal with all of that happened during those days where they didn't have school. They're expected to do stuff online. They could turn their teacher off if they wanted to, and but in all reality, the stuff that comes out of not interacting with others for a bunch of years and worried about people you love are going to die and I think you're seeing a lot of this anxiety built around those issues, as well as what social media has a possibility of doing to them, which, you have 1,000 friends, supposed friends, and, but nobody really knows you type of thing. And there's all kinds of stuff there as well that there's so much stuff built in there where having to deal with different types of thoughts and figuring out how to help them deal with anxiety created over time. So I think those are two biggies right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I,
definitely
I
seems like
have,
there's a lot
I
of
have to mention,
attention.
I have to mention something else real quick. 'Cause this I
Yeah,
was going to mention before when we were talking,
yeah,
and then I forgot it, and here it is. So you remember in the movie where they have the scenes where the girls are smoking in the bathroom,
yeah.
stuff like this, and the teachers are smoking. Well, one of the big problems they have today is not the smoking in the bathrooms, but I mean, because talk about technology changes, they have the ability for an alarm that sniffs out smoke, right? And so it can alert them in the office that, in the bathroom on hall C, number 1, 2, you need to go there now, type of thing. But what I wish it did was it turned on sprinklers or something. But vaping is a huge deal.
For sure. Yeah.
Because the little things, they get littler and littler, they can sneak them wherever they want to. And then in some of the schools, what's happening is the kids are throwing them in the toilet. So they stop up the toilet because they're
Hmm.
flushing, so they don't get caught with them. And then it turns, it, it's a modern version of the kids flushing all the other stuff they flushed in this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's always the bathrooms. Doesn't matter what era. Bathrooms that's always
Poor
the issue.
bastard. Yes, exactly. So the vaping thing is a huge deal now. And it's because at one point it was seen as, less intrusive, not as problematic as smoking, and now they've learned so much else.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thanks again for doing this. Anything else we want to hit before we wrap this one up?
Well, I'd love for people to check out my podcast, Teaching Learning Leading K12. I'm at episode 752.
Holy cow. So, yeah, that's
And
amazing.
thanks. I can't believe, I remember that when I started in the fall of 2013 and I had finally 2 people download it. And it's like, whoa, yay. But it's come a long way, and love for them to check that out, and they can find it on their favorite platform, or go to stephenmiletto.com, which is a website where it has all that stuff.
Yeah, we'll put those links in the show notes here too. But yeah, I know that's how we've connected in the podcasting world. So yeah, that's a lot of episodes. We're not anywhere near that yet. But yeah,
Getting there.
we're getting there. And yeah, it's such a good. I mean, I just love the world of podcasting. It's just a really good network of people, and there's just so many good sources out there. So thanks for what you're doing, putting it out there.
Thanks.
It's great. Yeah. Awesome. Along those lines, to our listeners, if you have not subscribed, just hit subscribe wherever you're listening. And betterlearningpodcast.com is the hub for everything. We have forms on there. If you have suggestions, if you want to be on talking about a certain movie, or anything else that you do, we do go through those really every week when we do our planning meeting. So we're looking and trying to figure out what are the best ones that we can put out. So that's all I got here, Stephen. It's good seeing you.
Good seeing you too, Kevin. It was awesome. Thanks.
All right. Talk to you later.
Take care.
The Better Learning Podcast is produced by Matt Rogers and edited by Kelly Jones. The views and opinions shared on this podcast are those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily represent the perspectives of their affiliated companies, organizations, or associations.